One of the greatest celebrations of the year is almost here, Legends Festival 2023. And with how well the anniversary performed, expectations are at an all-time high going into the celebration. One of the biggest reasons for the success of the 5th anniversary was definitely because of the banner format and the units. Part 1 being a single step-up banner with 4 new sparkings, Part 2 being a double LF step-up banner with a lot of wanted units, and then Part 3 with one of the most anticipated ultras in the game. So it's fair to assume that if they wanted Legends Festival to at least match the anniversary in terms of hype, they would need to give us a similar format. What kind of units can they truly release to capture the hype and meet the expectations people have on the celebration? Well, we're gonna go through some potential options in this video, some obvious and some not so obvious ones, and once the festival ends, we can see how well we did in our prediction. So let's start off with Part 1. So unlike previous years, it's not completely obvious what the new units can be. Like I mentioned, it's fair to assume this is simply gonna be a single step-up banner following the 5th anniversary model for Part 1. The one unit that most people are expecting for Part 1 is, of course, Kage, Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken Goku, and Super Saiyan Blue Evolved Vegeta. Now, nothing really points to this unit being the Part 1 unit, but for some reason, everyone expects them to drop. The past 2 festivals, we have gotten a tag unit for Part 1, and unless they plan on changing that, which is very likely, this can very easily fill that slot because not only is it a tag unit, but it's also a very hype unit, right? So options we can see alongside this Goku and Vegeta is some of the other Universe 7 members from the Tournament of Power, maybe even Lightspeed Dispo, which is also a good option since we don't have him yet. And pretty much any Tournament of Power unit can be on the table, just like Part 1 of the 5th anniversary where we got Kyoei and Casserole as a 1% sparking unit. For Part 1, we're gonna leave it at that because although we can discuss about a number of different possibilities, I want to keep that for Part 2 since in my opinion, Part 2 can literally be anything. So we're gonna dive into some interesting options. Now, like I said, Part 2 is interesting. It can either be a hit like the 5th anniversary or a miss like last year's festival. Once again, we're gonna assume the same model as the 5th anniversary, so double LF step-up banner. Now, when you think of all the hype moments left to be represented, there really isn't much available. But one thing that sticks out as a hype moment from Dragon Ball Z that can easily be represented as a dual step-up is the Saiyan Saga, specifically Kaioken Goku and Vegeta. It's crazy to think that this Goku has never gotten an LF yet, and although we have LF graded Vegeta, we don't have his Gallic gun as an LF, so this can be a very easy way to implement both as a dual step-up banner. Now, of course, I'm sure there's gonna be a bunch of people that only like the new God forms and might be disappointed, but this moment is one of the most iconic moments in the show, and it deserves to be represented with justice. Other than that, we need to think of what teams they usually buff during these celebrations. The 2 most common ones are Future and Movies. When it comes to Future, we still don't have a tag Goku, Black, and Zamasu. Although we do have an assist version of them, we still don't have a tag version. Also, since we don't have an LF Fusion Zamasu non-corrupted, they can try to implement some sort of fusing mechanic, or they make them revive into Fusion Zamasu, similar to the new Revival Pikkon into Gogeta. You can also get a similar version, but for Goku and Vegeta into Vegito. But if Part 1 is going to be Goku and Vegeta, then I would really hope that's not the case for Part 2. Now, for movies, they pretty much covered all the hype ones, and there isn't really much left unless you decide to make some reskins of certain characters. The only ones that come to mind are the Spirit Bomb Absorb Goku and Birdku, but I'm pretty sure people wouldn't be too pleased with more Gokus if, again, we assume Part 1 is Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken and Evo Vegeta. They could, of course, focus more on the villains, but the only ones that I believe can even be hype enough for Festival would be an LFZ Broly. Not Turles, not Slug, I don't see any of those bastards. Also, keep in mind that we're currently nearing the end of the movie Sagas campaign, so if they were to get buffed again during the festival, it would definitely be a bit excessive. I also purposefully excluded GT units since I'm sure Part 3 will be GT, but if Part 3 isn't GT related, then there's some options for GT we can see in Part 2. The biggest one being Universal Spirit Bomb Goku, which is pretty much the only big moment from GT that is not represented yet. This could be a regular LF or even a tag unit alongside Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, similar to Dokkan's 8th anniversary. And if it were a dual step-up banner, they can drop a number of GT villains as LF, such as Super Baby 2, Omega Shenron, and even Super 17, since none of them have an LF version of them. But since I strongly think Part 3 will be GT related, I don't see this happening unless they want to hyper buff GT, which would make sense since the team kind of sucks. So that's pretty much it for Part 2. Now we move on to Part 3, and as you already know, Part 3 is where they reserve the Ultra unit. I don't think we're going to see a double Ultra. It's a bit too early for that, especially considering how shit the banners are. So what unit can wrap up the celebration with a lot of hype? Well, if we look at the past 2 years, look what we find. 2021 Festival, Ultra Super Gogeta. 4th Anniversary, Ultra Super Vegito. 2022 Festival, Ultra Gogeta Blue. And then 5th Anniversary, Ultra Vegito Blue. Do you see a pattern? It's always been fusions, and who's the last remaining fusion to receive an Ultra? Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. This is of course what everyone is hyped for, and it's pretty much a no-brainer for them in terms of maximizing hype and revenue. Now, what other possibilities can fit this spot in case it's not Gogeta? Well, there's only really a couple options they can go for. The most obvious one would be Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, who is pretty much at the same level of hype, if not higher than Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. I personally wouldn't mind him either, since I love Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, probably more than Gogeta, and it would be really good for hybrids since they haven't gotten a really good buff since Zenkai Sword of Hope Trunks, and before him it was basically Beast Gohan. Other than him, they could also go with an Ultra DBS Broly if they want to follow the movie theme, especially the DBS Broly theme they've been using for the past 3 festivals. Again, I wouldn't mind it, but I would much prefer the other 2 options. So that's basically my prediction for this year's festival. The biggest wild card is definitely part 2, since literally anything is on the table, especially considering Legends has practically gone through all the major events from Dragon Ball, so I'm really interested to see what they're gonna do when the time comes. Of course, definitely let me know what you guys think is coming for this festival, whether it be characters or any sort of events. Let me know in the comments below. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and don't forget to subscribe, because it's so important, so don't forget. Alright, have a great day. See ya.